Welcome to the Dr. John Char Holistic Health Show. In the last series, we talked about neural brain transmitters and how they can enact and really affect your human behavior as well as some of the organs that is related to it. Today we're going to be talking about cell metabolism and how the cells react with the food you eat and the supplements or natural supplements or even drugs you take. But in order to understand this, it gets kind of technical. So we try to keep it as much as possible in simple terms. We're going to show you some diagrams on how the body cell works. But before that, let me give you some kind of explanation. Many of you have taken minerals and vitamins as your daily supplements. But how do you know that they are being utilized in the cell properly? You just take them and you think that's going to help you get energy or get less energy. However, if you understand the principles of how the cell works, the principles of how the cell works, it means all the different minerals, how they interact, and what parts of the cell they are, you can get a better understanding of what happens. And then if you go ahead and take certain supplements that say it's good for cell energy, you understand what it does. And if you feel that the cell energy is improved by that particular supplement or even food you take, then you can understand what's happening. However, if you take certain supplements which it says good for cellular energy and you're still fatigued and chronic and ill, then something's not working within the cells to convert it into energy. So we're going to talk about some of these. Some of the words that have been bandied around that you hear a lot, especially when you read health magazines or you go to the health food store and you pick up brochures or you see on TV. You see those and it doesn't make sense to you, but you accept it because it's played quite a bit on media that you see or hear. So let's talk about some of the words you're going to hear a lot about. And it's coming more and more in the literature and into the internet. One of the biggest words is called ATP, that's found in the cells. Adenosine triphosphate. It's a combination of three different phosphorus minerals that are combined together. And that converts down to the diphosphate to phosphate, and then you get the energy. But another one is glucose. Glucose is also found within the cells, stored within cells, and when it's released, you get energy. Okay? So another one really important is mitochondria. And mitochondria is also now been labeled as one of your energy type of elements within the cell. So those three. But in order for them to work, you got to understand where we call the pathways or how it comes down into the cells. And those cells I'm talking about are the organ cells, that make the organs work. First of all, if you eat anything, the body has a natural, what we call a lubricating and digestive type of mechanism called enzymes. These enzymes basically, it breaks down sugar. So when you first eat, then you're going to break down the sugar with the saliva you have in the mouth. It's called amylase. And the amylase comes down into your mouth as you eat and mixes with the food. And it's supposed to break down the carbohydrates and the sugar. And then he sits down on the top of the cardiac portion, means the top portion of the stomach, while the stomach is been stimulated by the adrenal gland. It's stimulated by the adrenal gland through the gland called gastrin, which secretes hydrochloric acid. And when the stomach is ready to receive the food, then the food drops down into the container or the center of the stomach, in the stomach itself, and is digested. The food is broken down into amino acids through the hydrochloric acid. and then also the enzymes going to come in just shade after the hydrochloric acid start to do its job breaking down the proteins to amino acid. So what happens is then the pancreas is stimulated, and the pancreas sends down called digestive enzymes or proteolytic enzymes, and it sends it down to the end of the stomach, which is the valve there, ileocecal valve. And the ileocecal valve drops it down like an opening, it's like a valve, and then it drops it down to the small intestines, which again is brings down from that the proteolytic enzymes, because that's where usually the junction of the stomach and the small intestines meet. Is called the ileocecal valve, and it brings it down there and it breaks it down. Now, when it gets into the small intestines, then the small intestines has this called villi, like little nipples, and on the walls of the small intestine, inside wall. And then what happens is it sucks up the ingredients in the small intestine from the stomach. And if you have glucose in there, it's one of the first things you're going to pick up. It goes right into the bloodstream. If it's not controlled, of course, then you get a hyperglycemic stage. Okay, you get a lot of sugars going into your system quite rapidly. And if the body can't control it through the pancreas, then of course the body starts breaking down. And some of the signs you can have from that after the meals, you're going to see that after the meals. As I said before in my last show, that you're going to see that the post-dural glucose sugar spike. So if you took a fasting glucose test through the glucometer, and you saw your readings was 70 to 85, you were in normal range. That's before you eat. And after you eat, then the number shouldn't go past more than 40. And so we like to keep it, say, 120. Now, the medical standards have raised, even some of the people have raised the fasting glucose count from 70 to 85 to 99. Okay. However, what you should have it is within, say, the ideal range is from 70 to 80. Now, if it goes up to past 120 and stays there 2 hours later after you eat, then you're in trouble, because the sugar is in high count. I mean, it's a sugar is elevated. The glucose is elevated in the blood, and that can create problems over a period of time to your legs. You can get numbness and spiking in the legs, numbness in the toes, or some people call it diabetic neuropathy. Okay, and also the eyes can cause a problem with blindness. Starting to get blind, you start losing some of the sight, and it's called diabetic retinopathy. Or you can get kidney problems, or you can get liver problems, or you can get aging problems, and you can cause a lot of the major disease you see today. It leads to a lot of degenerative diseases. So, understanding that, I took you through that sort of a digestive tract right rapidly. And so there are a lot of good videos on YouTube, and you can see how the body functions through a digestive system by going to YouTube, and you got a lot of good tutorials on there. Then from that point on, this is an important point. Now you've taken your supplements or you've taken your food, and now it's got to be sent to the bloodstream. And when it gets into the bloodstream, what it does is it's carried through the blood, and the blood's going to take it all different parts of the body. Okay, and before that happens, is you're going to go to the liver. The liver has to process it down and send it to the heart, and then the heart is going to, it's like a muscle, it's a pump, and it feeds oxygen through the pulmonary arteries, and it goes to the lung, and it comes back and feeds oxygen, and then it sends it up to the head, and then sends it out to the rest of the body. And it sends up to the head, and you don't have enough of the oxygen intake and the substrates, which is carried by the blood itself, the nutrients and all the different things that the blood can carry. It can carry like fungus, bacteria, all these different types through the cells. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the cells, because once you get into the cells got to do something. But first of all, it has to go through a process where the blood vessels are going to go through the process of osmosis, and the substrates, which is the supplements or the things that's carried in the blood, is got to go through the blood wall, vessel wall. And then I'm going to show you in a minute right now. I'm going to show you a video, and we're going to put it up here so we can see it. And we're going to bring it up here. Let me see, wider. And you can see sort of an outline of what I'm talking about. Okay. And it's called the system of basic regulations. So here is the blood vessels, right? And here's the blood vessels. And then it's going to go through outside the vessel wall, and it's going into what we call a area, and it's called the connective tissue. And the connective tissue is the layer between the blood vessels and the cell wall. And the cell wall is the cells out here is called parenchymal cells. But it has to go through here called the transit route, and it consists of ground matrix. And what this ground matrix does, it has a whole bunch of cells in there. And the cells are used to kind of filter out some of the toxins coming in from the blood itself, trying to protect the cell wall, the organ's wall, from getting all these toxins. So they have giant cells, and they have fibrocytes, and they have all kind of histamines, and all these are in the mast cells. Okay, they are in here, and then it's going to kind of filter out the everything that's coming in from the blood. And see, it also has bacteria, hyaluronidase, and then it gets into the cell wall. And see, and then the cell wall is here, and that's kind of mix up the organs itself. So I'm going to show you another picture here, which you can see, and I'll bring it down a little bit further. Okay, and let me see, we can bring it down further. Okay, right here. So now we're going to see, so here's the heart, and the heart's going in, and you see there's a little arrow you can see here, and that's step one, and that's from the artery. It's got to go through this layer, and this is called the ground matrix or the connective tissue. And you're going to see a whole bunch of, you can see it you can't see it too well, but there's a bunch of cells here. That one is called phagocytic cells, which actually kills a lot of the attack a lot of the toxins in a system. You have here different cells here, immunological kind of cells, and you have a whole bunch of different complementary cells and things like that right in this area here, a whole section of different types of cells. And when it goes through that, it's basically to sort of like a filtration system. It kind of trying to clean some of these toxins out. Now these toxins can be any type of toxins. You can get it from the mercury fillings in your mouth, different things that goes into the bloodstream, and they excrete mercury, and the mercury goes into the bloodstream. And then what it does is houses in this area. So this is a really important area called the connective tissue or the ground matrix, because this is the area where people get allergies. And when they can't filter it out through the cells itself, you can't get it in, it gets into the cell, now you're in trouble. So now you can see, so I picked the colon here, large intestines, and this is just happened to be a representation of some of the cells that make up this whole colon. So it has to get into the cells, okay? And so some of the things that regulate it is you got to get the right temperature, you got to get good circulation, so the blood vessels can go open up, and then you get this water inside that's also carried in the blood, and that pressure is going to push these transport all these substrates into the cell wall and going to push it inside the cell itself, you see, and that's what the water does. it pushes it in there. So it's like hydraulic pressure. And then you have oxygen regulators, and you get cell metabolism through detoxin, all these different acid-alkaline balance. All those are necessary in this layer here to get into the cells. Now, that said, when you get into the cells, then we have another diagram here I'm going to show you. Let me see if I can get it here. Okay, I can't. And so when it gets into the cell, let me show you what it does. And so we're going to put this one here. It's called the cell, and we're going to bring this down. And this is the kind of like a representative of the cells. And in the middle of the cells, it's called a nucleolus, which houses the DNA in your body. But really important that we talk about is the mitochondria. This is mitochondria. This thing here is mitochondria. You see? And you have different things within the cells. But within the cells, you have a whole bunch of what we call like ionic minerals. And the minerals can be inside the cells: sodium, magnesium, manganese, zinc, copper, chromium. Okay? And potassium is usually outside the cells. So we call that in the cells, intracellular; out the cells, extracellular. So what is so important in giving all these different things? Because now we're going to talk about how the body, once it brings it into the cells, and it finally get pushed into the cells, what's so important, what's a really important factor there is how is it going to get in the cells, these substrates, and how the body is going to release the ATP, mitochondria, all these different energy out of the cells to give you energy. Because if you can't get into the cell wall, then you're going to have a problem getting energy. And what's so important about that, and we're going to talk about that in the next show, is that there are now devices to help speed that along. And it's like a magnetic kind of currency, okay? And we're going to show you that more in the next show and what it can do. But so it's so important that you get that cell wall to cooperate with you, because if you can't get the substrates or that from the bloodstream, you can't get the cells to work. Now, what's so important in the cells itself also? I told you have this bunch of minerals, and they will actually, like a salt shaker, start shaking up, moving along. And then as they do that, and you get proteins going in there, and you got in the cell wall, you have proteins and you have fat. And we're going to show you that in a minute right now. So if you do this, we're going to put this in, and we're going to put this slide over, and we're going to show you this. Okay, now this is, okay, cell wall. Okay, now here's the cell wall. It's outside the extracellular fluids, inside within the cell itself, okay? But in the cell wall, guess what? You got a lot of fat in there called lipids, okay? Lipid. And they are bilateral pairs. And so fat can go in and out of this barrier right in here to here. But they also have these things called channels, which are protein based. And what happens, these proteins are it's a channel where the minerals inside the body, once they shook together, they join together, they merge together, like magnesium, potassium, sodium, all these different combinations of minerals which get together, and they'll sort of like change, format, and then you got to go out to the cells to feed the body. And so as what happens is you get these channels. Now, what's so important about ATP? Because those 3 molecules of phosphorus is going to push these minerals out and push it through these channels. See, and the more you push it out to the channel, then it can get out. That's where you could get the energy. The body starts to pick it up outside of the cells, and then it's what it does, it exchanges energy. And the waste products can go out. So the energy can come in, they can actually create a mixing of that in the cells. The cells got to push it out as waste products and things like that to get out, okay? And so these are channels. So what's so critical about this? The critical part is the cell wall. If the cell wall doesn't have enough current and it's low frequency, you don't have a big kind of frequency called hertz. You don't have that electrical current. If you don't have electrical current, the cell dies. It's just that simple. But if you have the correct current, and it's usually under 30 hertz, maybe 5 hertz, 8 hertz, things like that, the energy is going to be exchanged in and out. And that's where it's important for you people who have chronic fatigue. Your body's not being able to process the energy in and out of that cell. Okay? How about people who have degenerative diseases, very low frequencies, they can't get it in and out of the cell. And people start to feel the cells start to die, and you get degeneration, and that can lead to cancer, Parkinson's diseases, Alzheimer's, and so forth. So you're getting a whole bunch of these. So these cell walls are really important. And so we're going to go through this. And so now, as we get through this channels, you're going to have another channel called here. Okay, we'll put this right here. Okay, we'll show this channel here, and we'll go back here. And so the first thing is, these are channels I showed you, made of proteins, and then the fluid from outside the cells is going to go in here. And if the glucose molecules attaches to receptor sites right in here, it starts going to, this is called receptor sites. It goes in here, and then it's got to open up this receptor sites and then carry this just like a gate, and it goes right into the cell itself. So you have to have certain kind of forces coming in from the plasma, the blood coming in through that, pushing through that, but it's filtered and it gets in here. Now, if you can't get in here, a lot of times the molecules are too big, and you can't get into this opening called aquaporins. You can't get into here, and then that way the problem is, then you start peeling up in the connective tissue I showed you, and then when you start getting allergies, and then usually undigested proteins. Okay, that can cause allergies, and the proteins molecules are big. So once it gets in there, okay, we're going to show another picture here. Okay, here's the glucose molecules. It gets into the receptors, and then it's released into here. The glucose is released into the cytoplasm in the cells. Okay, and now it's got to be used, right, utilized and stored, and then it's going to release into, and then it's going to release it into as glucose outside the cells into the cell wall, and once you use the energy up. Okay, so now you get into the next slide here, and we're going to show you that, see, okay, so the large molecules that cannot diffuse through the lipids, means fat, or the channel, either through this fat wall, which is the cell wall, or it can cross the membrane, which is in here, these channels, see, large molecules, only small soluble molecules and ions diffuse through the cellular membrane. So it can go either way, in or out. And I told you about the minerals, got to be here, and it's called like ionic, gets really tiny, and then it can be pushed up. But guess what? What helps to get is ATP. I told you that, and then you'll see that more and more people talk about that. So when it gets out there, now the body's got to carry through the bloodstream back into the other parts of the body, either a exhaust or detox, and you can do that. So now, finally, you're going to do this, and then you're going to get this here. We're going to put this here now, and I'll bring this down. And we're talking about here, and it's called the sodium-potassium exchange pump. Very important you understand this, because now you see the extracellular water is outside, and if you get too much extracellular water in there, you get a lot of potassium in there. And what happens is, person starts to swell. That's what you get called edema. Okay? And see, the ATP I talked about is right here. See, and it converts to ATP. When it breaks down, you see the 3 molecules here. It starts to push these minerals, ions, ionic ions out of the cell, and also some exhaust the toxins. So you get out there, and then the body starts to get exchange of sodium and potassium, and that's where you get the energy. Okay? So finally, we'll show you this here, finally, right here, and you're going to see right here the nutrients goes in the cell wall, minerals go in, oxygen go in, what comes out, water, carbon dioxide, it's waste product, toxins, and here's the cell. So the plus and minus is really important, how the function of the cell wall is. Okay? Now, if you understand these processes, okay, now you're going to understand how the cell works. And if you take the right supplements, and you have the cell membrane working good, that supplement is really going to work for you. If you take all these different supplements and it doesn't you still feel sluggish, it's not getting into the cells, it's not being processed and exchanged for to break down into the cells for energy. And so I just gave you a sort of an idea of what it is. So we're going to talk more about that in our second show, and we're going to be talking about PEMF, whole body battery recharger. All right, that's a new thing's coming up. I'm going to be showing you that. And we're going to show you what it does, what kind of conditions it works on, and what kind of frequency we're using. So we're using high tech now. So we're going to be sticking with high tech. This is the cutting edge of medicine right now. And so we're trying to get away as much as possible from drugs, using high frequency, to making cellular changes, and understanding when you take a supplement, why things work and why doesn't it work as efficiently as it should be. All right? So again, we will be talking about PEMF, and I will explain more to you on the next show. So if you want to continue looking at my show, you can go to streaming on Alelo, or you can stay tuned to our Dr. John Char Holistic Health Show. We have it the first and third Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Channel 52. And also we have it on the Facebook. You can go to my Facebook. You can go to www.drjohnchar.com. So I'll see you next time.